They put a lot of effort in, and they make it look effortlessly. Effortlessly. Um, yeah. Say it again. Effortlessly. Lee. See, you know what I enjoy is that there's always somebody, there's always a heckler. If it's not here, it's online or a phone call. I appreciate your emails. I'm just doing what I can. You know what I mean? I'm just doing what I can. Now I'm trying to figure out how to work effortlessly into it later on. When some of you know, some of you don't know that uh, in the early years of Alex's life, I spent a lot of time in a skating rink, a lot of time. And Alex, when he was a speed skater, and when Alex was, it looks just like him, doesn't it? For a little. Oh. Alex, when he was 6, he and a relay partner went out to Lincoln, Nebraska, and they took number 2 in the nation in a relay in inline skating. And when he was 8 years old, and that would be, I forget when regionals were, but it was somewhere around that. He was 8 years old in that picture, and 7 or 8, but they went out to nationals when he was 8, and that was in Fresno, California. And he and his partner, they took number 2 in the nation in inline skating, in the relay. And for those of you that don't know, competing at that type of a level, it takes a lot of training, and it takes a lot of dad sitting there. And mom doing whatever moms do. But it takes a lot of training. She's over there heckling me, all right. But anyway, it takes a whole bunch of time. It takes a lot of training. It takes a lot of dedication, not just on the skater, but on those that are trying to figure out how to support that bad habit of the sport. But I learned a whole lot about skating by watching him. I learned a whole lot about training, and I also learned a whole lot about practicing and dedication to the whole deal. And it was funny because as you sit there, if you just walk in and you see it going on, you really don't understand it. It's kind of like I thought about the Higgins in this. And when they swim the same way, or they try to swim the same way every single time. When skating, it's the same deal. It's a 100-meter oval track. And they have the straightaway that they're going just as hard as they can. Then you're heading into the curve, and it's a crossover, and then the final crossover, you're headed back into the straightaway again until you get to the other curve, and then it's a crossover. They do it the same way every single time, unless they're trying to move up in the pack. Or maybe they've been leading for a while and they need to back off just a little bit and let somebody else take the lead, and so they'll slip back. But other than that, or if they're doing that thing and you could almost see it in somebody's mind as they're trying to set up either an inside or an outside pass. Of course, my job was to yell, set it up, and you could almost see. Of course, that's the worst thing that somebody could do, was to let them know that the pass is coming, right? But still, you can't keep it quiet. And as they're setting up and they're doing something just a little bit different to give them that edge to actually do the pass. But when they're going through that thing, and it seems like they're doing the same thing over and over and over and over, but please be clear, they are being extremely intentional about that thing that they're doing. Well, they're just doing that thing. They're being extremely intentional. It's not mindless stuff that they're going on. And especially, I'm going to be talking about the specific relay event that Alex competed in, as well as the individual stuff. But the things that they did, they're very, very technical. And you're dealing with some high-quality gear on his feet. And so the first time we put like speed bearings on him. The coach, the guy that ran the rink, he sat there and he says, you know what, his those things are going quicker than his mind. He just, and until he figured out how to control it, he said, his mind's not keeping up. Well, he had to. There were so many details and so many intricacies that he had to think about, until it was overwhelming for almost any skater, but specifically somebody of that age group. Somebody that was, I guess he started 4 or 5, somewhere. He was young. But I remember one specific time that Alex and his partner, they were competing in a skate meet up in Roswell, and I don't remember if there were heats leading up to it, or if there were only 6 mixed relay teams that were there. But it's always interesting when you're dealing with kids, because you've always got that one kid that's like really overconfident. The team that comes out, we got this, and they may or may not have. And then you've got those anxious kids that are out there. They're about to throw up as they're getting ready to get on the line. But this specific one, there were 6 teams, relay teams, that were in the race, and the race began. And as I stated, there's a whole bunch of specific rules and procedures that have to be followed, the guidelines as to how, when, and where the relay exchanges would happen, because there's only one of them skating at a time, and then they would swap off and they would do their passes, and then the other one would skate while the other one was getting ready to get back into the race. And one team after another is doing something wrong, and they end up getting disqualified. What were they, Alex? Is he here? He stepped. Refs. Yeah. Whatever the official was called at the time, they'd blow their whistle, they would break a rule, and they'd throw them out. And so it's getting easier and easier to win, because the teams are being pulled out of the race. And so it ends up that there's only 2 teams that are left in this particular race. How easy is that going to be? And so they come around, and it's obvious that the other team is more experienced, they're more seasoned than Alex and Melanie, his partner. But as they come around, they make the final exchange, and it's on. And it's pretty clear that there's no way that Alex is in the final leg. There's no way that he's going to be able to pass the guy. But he's pressing on anyway, because all he has to do is, if he passes him, they win first. If he doesn't, they win second, because there are only 2 of them that are actually going to complete the race. So Alex comes around, and it's an ugly fall. It's not pretty. And I don't know if you know anything about skating rink floors, but they're hard. And when you're going as fast as these guys at that level, I mean, it's extra, extra hard. And as he goes down, and it's ugly. It's in skiing, they used to refer to it as yard sale. This going here and that one going there. And so, but he's laying there, and it appears that he's intact. And you see the kid that's in first around the corner. And I don't know if it's the distraction. I don't know if it's the overconfidence. I don't know what it is, but he cuts a corner. He's out. So here you are as parents, and you're looking at your kid that's sitting there, and I'm not going to say he was crying, but he was crying. And he's laying there in this pool, and it's horrible. I didn't do the full thing, but you understand. It's a fetal position that he's there. Let's act like he's not here. But as he's lying there, your heart goes out to him, and you want to go out, but once you step out on the floor and you touch him, and it's over, right? I mean, that's against the rules. And so Melanie, his partner, her dad, Big Mike, Mike, it was 7'2". He was well over 300 pounds. He was a Hulk of a man. And Mike, runs, which it was hilarious. He runs down the sideline and he gets over to where Alex is there on the ring, on the floor in a fetal position, crying. As he's lying there, Big Mike, looks over and says, "Psst, hey, Alex." Nothing. Alex continued to cry. "Hey, do you want a trophy?" All of a sudden, Alex's head pops up with helmet a little ajar, and he looks at him and he says, "Look, all you have to do is get up and skate around one time, and you get a trophy. You want a trophy?" And then it may have just been me. I don't know if it was the theme from Rocky or if it was more of that Eye of the Tiger. You know what I'm talking about? That starts with the guitar, dun, 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 dun. Anyway, so Alex, he gets up and snot. But he skates around, and sure enough, he completes the race, and they win. Guess what they get? They get a trophy. That's right. They won a race. And just in case you haven't figured out, running the race isn't always easy, is it? In life, it seems like it's one thing or another. And there's several times in the Bible that the everyday life of being a Christian, of actually following Christ, is described as a race. And we're off and we're running. And it's not the 50-yard dash. I think that's what I put on your next steps. I mean, it's a marathon. It's not just a marathon. It's a marathon on top of a marathon. And it's Nat did an Ironman. It's like Ironman one day, and then you wake up and what are you going to do? It's Ironman the next day. It's one after another. And it seems like every single day there's a new challenge, there's a new struggle, there's a new something that's going on that, and most of us, we never saw it coming. But we have to realize that in that thing that God has laid out, He's provided the path that we're to follow. So today what I want to do, the primary text is already up there. It's Philippians 3:14. And I'll be reading out of the New Living Translation because Paul talks a lot about this race, this Christian life. Philippians 3, verse 14. "I press on to reach the end of the race and receive the heavenly prize for which God, through Christ Jesus, is calling us." And he continues to give us even more insight in 1 Corinthians. It's chapter 9, it's verse 24. This too is out of the NLT. It says, do you not know that in a race the runners all compete, but only one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may win it. And I was talking to Kathy as I was preparing for this, and one of those things. Nowadays, we all get a participation trophy, right? We all get that. And Paul's saying, that's not necessarily the thing, and that, we ought to be, it's not just, hey, you showed up and you tried. It truly is that you have to stay focused on that thing. And how is it that we're supposed to run this race that we're called to do? And the author of Hebrews, who I believe is Paul, it's either Paul or it's someone that's mimicking Paul, someone that's trying to write like Paul, which actually fits the message today anyway. But Hebrews, the whole chapter 12 is good, but I'm specifically highlighting verses 1, 2, and 3. This too is out of the NLT. "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion, who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he is seated in the place of honor beside God's throne. Think of all the hostility he endured from sinful people. Then you won't become weary and give up. When we're running the race, we've got to remember the words, we are not alone. You're not alone. And I appreciate the band singing that today. It talks about surrounded by a cloud of witnesses. In the 12th chapter of Hebrews, which we're reading this out of, if you back up into the 11th chapter, that's where we have what we call the Hall of Faith. Not Hall of Fame, but the Hall of Faith, where it talks about all the specific people, not all of them, a lot of the specific people in the Old Testament saints that had, this one did this one, and this one did that, and how great was their faith. And then he goes into this last passage out of Hebrews talking about surrounded by a cloud of witnesses. These people who have run the race before, and then he talks to us about how to race well. He tells us to strip off the extra weight that slows you down, to get rid of the sin that trips you up, to don't let anything tangle you up and make you fall. But then he gets to I think the key to it all. Whoever the author of Hebrews is, he talks about the real key is keeping your eyes on Jesus. And look at what he did. Look at what he was able to overcome and endure, because he was focused clearly on God and what his mission was here. And so if we're able to do that, if we're able to focus on him rather than those distractions that are around us, that's how we're able to continue on. Please understand, the Scripture never, ever, ever, ever says that it's going to be easy. Scripture never, ever says that running the race is going to be easy. And said, one of the things that I love that Jesus said, in this world you will have troubles. and you got that one right, But it can be done, is what it's saying. You're not alone, and it can be done. And Paul talks about winning this heavenly prize. Alex has trophies, medals, ribbons. They're everywhere, and you know where they are? They're in a box. They're packed up. They're the gold-plated stuff. It starts to fade. It starts to come off or whatever. Paul's not talking about that type of prize. He's talking about eternity, that heavenly prize. And the things that we often look as our trophies, and some of us drove our trophies here today, didn't we? And we get out and we turn around, look at my trophies sitting there, and we put our value there rather than where it needs to be, and what Paul's talking about, the stuff that we get so excited about, it has no comparison to this thing that Paul is wanting us to press on toward. Now, in this life, the truth is, sometimes we fall. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we struggle. Sometimes we lose our focus. Sometimes we run out of gas. And for whatever reason, we have simply given up. Was it our decision? Was it somebody else's? Was it life? I don't know. But for whatever reason, we are. Back to the skating thing. One of the things that about speed skating is that they all start out at the same place. They start out at the same line. And it's kind of crazy at the beginning because they're all like sprinting out there. And if you watch people on inline skates, it's some of them do like a little duck walk kind of thing to get going. But as soon as they can, they get into a pack. And that's how the majority of the races are actually run, where maybe a pack of 6, a pack of 8 people. And if you watch them, they're doing identical arm movements, identical movements of their legs, of their feet at the same time, unless they're doing one of those things that I talked about before, which is setting up for a pass or whatever. But they're doing that, and there's something that happens whenever they're skating together. But if one will fall or start to fall, maybe for whatever, or maybe they're running out of energy. They just fall away from the pack. And it's interesting because you'll still have the one group that keeps going, they keep going, they keep going, and then you've got the one over there to the side. And one of the worst things that you don't want to see is one of the skaters reach down and put his hands on his knees, because that's pretty well the sign for I'm done. But they're sitting there, and they're maybe going half as fast as the others that are going. But then there's this thing that happens. As the group comes by, the one that's struggling, the very next time they'll yell at him. One of his teammates will yell at him. 2 simple words: get on. And the next time that they're coming around, you'll see the guy, and you hear the Rocky music coming back again, and he'll jump in, and he jumps onto the pack. And so this person went from doing nothing and from just kind of flailing around to actually being and going just as fast as they were. They go from a place of despair, of no hope, to actual hope. They go from being drained to they're keeping up. They're going from this place of isolation to being a part of the group. Pressing on for that prize, whatever that thing might be. But here's the phenomenon. I have never, ever, ever seen anyone get on without being encouraged by someone that was in the pack calling to them to get on. I've never seen it where, you know what, I'm just going to get up to speed and get in there. It was always when there was somebody that was in the pack that was encouraging them to come over and do that. Some of us on our faith journey, we've grown weary, have we not? Or we've got friends that are outside, and we know that they're out there and they're flailing around, they're struggling. And what are we doing? We're continuing to try to do our thing, right? Or we come and we'll talk about, hey, you see what that one's doing over there? Man, isn't that terrible? Isn't that horrible that they're just over there and they're struggling and they're not doing this thing? Sometimes the people that are out there that are not part of the pack, part of the reason that they're struggling the way that they are is that they start looking at all the spiritual giants that are sitting in here today. That was sarcasm. You with me? But isn't that it? When you look at somebody that's like really got it going on, and you're like, oh man, look at that. And the truth be told, we're all struggling. We're all struggling with some sort of thing. Some people do have that supernatural faith that helps them get through some things that I'm not sure that I could get through. But you know what? Maybe there's something that I'm dealing with in a way that maybe is a little bit better than what they think that they could. But ultimately, what we're doing is we're pressing on to that prize, which Paul talks about. My question this morning, and I really want you to, don't say it out loud, but who around you has fallen? Who around you is struggling? Or, some of you might just want to go ahead and say, it's me. I'm the one that has dropped out of that pack. And here's the thing. Church people have a tendency to go out, and we want to go and we want to tell somebody, you know what, the reason that you're over here and that you're struggling this way is because of what you've done. Okay? If you're running your race, and that's what you're doing, you're running your race, you don't have time to go and tell somebody what their problem is. But there ought to be one call out of every single one of us, and it's to get on. And part of the reason that people won't come and try to get on is that, you're going to I know you just want to get me in here so that you can tell me what it is that I'm doing wrong. And I don't have time for that. What I do have time for is trying to run the very best race that I can, encourage you to come get on. But when we do that, we want them to jump in and go motion for motion with you. So then we have to start looking at, are you skating the race? Are you running the race? Are you swimming the race? If they jumped in with you, would that take them to that place to receive that prize? And so if we have faith issues, if we have life issues that are tangling us up, we need to get rid of those things so that when we invite someone to get on, that we make sure that they too can be pressing on to the prize that has been set before us. How sad it is to be off to the side, struggling, and it seems as if nobody cares. And every single one of us has been in that situation. There's that fine line between getting in somebody's business and speaking words of life into their life. What are we going to be as a church? Are we going to be inviting them to get on? Or are we going to be that person that says, hey, do you want a trophy? Because it might be your words that make that person raise their head and be able to get back into that race. Lord, gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for loving us the way that you do. We thank you so much for the opportunity